too. So we'll obviously just get people who are just searching,
Yeah.
how do I set up a schedule on System D or whatever?
Yeah. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, greetings and salutations, and thank you for clicking on this video. And this is going to be a follow-up to the last video that Jeremy and I did. If you missed that one, be sure to check it out. I know it's kind of long, but just pop some popcorn, throw grandma and the kids, and put them in the basement, and then you can just enjoy it. You know what I mean? There was, right at the end of that video, Jeremy was demonstrating how to set up a service in the System D where it will do something on a timed basis. And unfortunately, we couldn't make it work in the video. So this little video today, we're going to focus just on that. He's going to show us what went wrong and how you can avoid the same problems. So Jeremy O'Connell is here from CyberWeb Solutions in Atlanta. I didn't say Hotlanta. And take it away, Jeremy. It is all yours, sir.
All right, thank you. You're going to see this in just a moment. I'll copy this to the screen. So hello, everyone. And as Joe said, I figured out what's going on. I actually figured out not too long after we hung up the recording or stopped the recording. And I realized, oh, this is a difference. And this is something that I wanted to bring because I wanted to show this. And I told Joe, hey, we need to show this working. And it's also something important because you can run across this on documentation on the internet, which is very common with Linux, where it'll work in one Linux environment and won't in the other, or another, I should say.
Mm-hmm.
When they're, especially if they're different based. If you have like a Red Hat based and then you're comparing it to a Debian. Now, most stuff does work cross distros, but you can have different environments set up in a different way. And so sometimes functions won't work. So I'm going to go ahead here and just paste. I've copied this from my notes. This is what I was trying to run if you go back and you review that recording.
And for hold on, and just 1 second. And for those of you who didn't see the other recording, this is going to show you how to do this. So you don't need to reference the other recording to get the information. It's just in the other recording, this didn't work, and we were trying to figure out why. Now we know. So go on, just making that clear.
Oh, that's a good point. So if you just wandered across and found this recording and haven't referenced, like Joe said, that's fine. You don't have to, it has a lot of good information, but if you don't need to watch that. This is the command I was trying to get System D to run. And as Joe pointed out, it was running because the timer was going up. If you go back and review that recording, you'll see System D tried to run it. You saw that it quote passed according to System D and then whatever. Here's the problem. This looks right, and the rsync is correct. Here is the problem. In a CentOS system, this is a symbolic link that is set up. So if I ls this, for example, this path does will reference actually as a symbolic link to bash actually. And
okay,
I use
so
those interchangeably.
we're looking just to clarify. The terminal that you see on your screen to the left is Ubuntu Mate, and the one on the right is CentOS.
That is correct.
Okay.
And I did that in the last video, and you're right, I did not set that up. So this is the local machine, which is Ubuntu Mate. It is a VirtualBox machine. You're right, Joe, I completely missed that, so good catch. And on the right here, I'm logged into CentOS. Now, if I ls this works in CentOS because CentOS environment does set up that alias. It's a symbolic link. And in fact, if I don't need to do the human, I will just I'll do an ls dash and then I'll there in essence with the H on there for human. You see this is just a sim link to bash. So however, if I run the same thing in especially Mate and Ubuntu, and I would assume Debian, although I haven't tried it, we get nothing. So what was happening is on my local Mate VirtualBox, when I was trying to show that, System D was firing that command off, but it couldn't run this because this command doesn't exist. There's no reference to that. And if you look at the scripts I've programmed and shown online, especially the connect to SSH, I usually will, in those scripts, I will just do a straight bin sh or bash bin to bash. And if I ls this, we will get that something's there. If that's on the Mate side now, and if I do it again on the CentOS side and I ls bin sh, I get that. So it's safer to use /bin/sh or /bin/bash. But I sometimes, as I was telling Joe before the recording started, I actually have only scheduled stuff on CentOS boxes on servers. And so I really didn't pay attention to that because it works both ways and I use them interchangeably. And again, this is important because you can go see documentation online and you may see a reference, and then it may be for a Red Hat system or a Debian system or some other type of system, and you try and use it in another Linux base, and it's like, why isn't this working? It looks right. And it was just it was an oversight on my part. So that is why it failed in that recording that we did on System D.
Let's do this. Okay, we know why it failed. Let's go through the process of setting this up and creating the files.
Correct, and that's what we're going to do right now.
Yeah, let's just do that again for those who don't want to go and find it in the other video, because this is actually quite easy to do. And this time we're going to make sure we do it right.
Well, Ben Bash is, and I actually copied that long ago. Well, not that long. System D isn't that old, and I just have always just kind of used that without even really giving it a second thought. So, and when I had tested it in CentOS, so that's why it worked. But I just wanted to explain, you got to watch those paths because sometimes you get different setups that are different. Now, you could create a symlink on a Debian system, but just use bin bash or sh and you'll be good to go. So now I'm going to explain how you do this from the beginning. So just a quick recap. You will, if you go look on the internet, because you haven't, for those who have not seen the previous video, and you do some research and you want to see, where do I put these files? A lot of documentation will tell you to put it in an incorrect place, at least according to the developers. So where you want to put this file is your own custom files, is etc systemd/system. A lot of places will want you to put it in a user directory, USR directory, which Unix or
Universal System Resources.
Yeah, I've heard it defined
or
as
Unix system resources, either one.
Yeah, it's up to you. I mean, I've heard it just, uniform, universal, Unix, whatever you want to call it, but the USR directory. So as I said in that video, according to the developers, that's incorrect. The Red Hat engineers, they say you should put it in etc systemd system directory. So we're going to go ahead and the example I want to create is a backup system, because I'm going to show you a timer-based system. So you're scheduling. So actually, first of all, before I do any of that, let's ls our home directory, because we're going to back this up. I went ahead in this video and set up a mate or mate user, and we have our developer user, because I want this to run, say, in our example, we want this to run and back up this directory here. So just for this example, I'm going to create a backup directory in the root file system. So if I ls the root file system with ls space dash, then the // then you'll see I don't have a backup directory. So I'm going to use sudo here because we want to write to a file system area that my developer account does not have access to. So we're going to do sudo mkdir, which is make directory. And I'm going to do /backup, then backup. And I have to enter in my password here for sudo access. And then if I do an ls space /, you can see here, we now have a backup directory where we didn't before. So I'm just going to do this locally. Now, if you're going to use systemd to schedule a backup, this is the same with cron or anacron or whatever, you have to make sure that the device you're backing up to is online. So I don't recommend this for removable media that might not be plugged in. So only do this, for example, local hard disks, or if you're mounting something with SSHFS or something that is going to be there, at least should be there. But again, like a thumb drive or USB hard drive that you may not always have plugged in, I wouldn't use this for that kind of method, because if it's not there, then obviously it can't be backed up to. But for example,
for something like that, then I always recommend GRSync. You can just it's a graphics thing, and you plug your drive in, you open up GRSync, it's already set up, you click back up, you're done. But go on.
Okay, so I just wanted to show that. Now I'll explain all this. So I'll go ahead and paste this to save time for having to type it all out. We're going to do sudo here because we're going to put a file into a directory that the developer account does not have permission to write to. So you have to use sudo so you can get root permissions. The super user do, if you're not familiar with that already. Space vi, I'm going to use vi. You can use nano or whatever you want to use, but a text editor that's you're able to use in a terminal. And then again, as I said, /etc/systemd/system, and then you pick the name of the file that you want to, well, the service. In this case, I'm gonna call it backup. Now, the way systemd works, if you have not seen the previous video that we made, Joe and I did, which, like you said, is pretty long, so pop some popcorn or do whatever you want to do and watch it. You pick a name for the service you want to create. And a service file, because systemd has multiple extensions. So a .service file is basically going to be the command that you want to run. So you don't have to create timers, but in this case we want to. So I'm going to create backup.service. I name that. So if you're wondering how to get backup, you could name it whatever you want to name it. And honestly, so that you don't get collisions, it's probably a good idea to put your name or something they're never going to, that no one else is probably ever going to use. So to avoid it, but in this case, to avoid collisions, but I'm just going to call it backup.service. That's going to be our file. So I hit enter, and we are now writing a new file with the VI editor. So again, that's etc systemd system, and you see backup.service file. So now what I'm going to do here is I'll explain all this. So let me go ahead here and I'm going to copy the file here from my notes or the commands here. I'm going to hit I because that's the insert mode in VI. I'm going to paste this, and I've written this out. So let me explain this now, because again, you might not have seen our previous video. You have sections in systemd. You have a unit section here, as you can see, and a service section here, and this is between brackets. So in the unit section here, you can see documentation, and that's where you put your man : and then reference there, because in systemd, if you run a help, it will run that manual. They'll do a man lookup. This is not required. Description, I would definitely put a description, and that's for us humans, yourself, so that when you do ask systemd what's going on, it will show you the description of the service. Now, in the service section here, you can see we have username, user and group, which are for the username and the group. These are not required, especially if you're going to run it as root. But I put this in here because you might have a service, you might want to create a service. I want this to run as my user. Or maybe you have a server and you're like, I want to run this as the MySQL user or something like that. So I just put this here to show you how this is done, because there are a lot of these variables you may set up. There's dozens of them that you're able to set up. You can set up, for example, if it fails, restart the service. That's something you can set up. Now type here, if you don't put a type, you see this type equals one shot, then the default will be simple. And you can go read about all the different types, but I prefer to use one shot because it doesn't spawn processes. It's pretty good to use for scripts. Now, if you're going to use something, for example, as I said, MySQL, which could spawn additional processes, that might not be the best idea. But for us, we just want to backup, run the backup, and quit. That's all we need. So again, simple is what systemd will assume if there's no type equals. There's also like type equals forking, which allows a system, or allows us, when a service runs, a command runs, it can have children processes. And there are other types. I'm not going to go through all of them. You can look up the documentation on systemd. But again, for things like backup, I recommend one shot. Then we have this exec start equals, and this is the command that systemd will use when you start it. There's also for reloading, and when you should reload the command, so you can have additional. But for us, we don't need to reload it. This command is just running rsync. So we're going to go this time correctly for Debian base /bin/sh instead of that, like I said, that other one that works in CentOS but is not set up for the Ubuntu Debian environments by default anyway. Then it's -c, which what that means is that's a flag to the sh shell that, look, everything in these parentheses is the command. So it's important, well, I said parentheses, excuse me, apostrophes. You want to make sure the command is between these two apostrophes. If something appears after, hit space and then type it, then that it goes into a variable instead. So you have to call that. So, well, I need to get rid of that. Typing in because I still insert mode. Okay, so now we're going to tell we're telling systemd, look, when you run this command, start the sh shell, then run the command rsync, and then we're going to issue in this case, this is the archive tag, and this is the delete. And we're going to use our source, which is the /home directory, and back it up to our /backup directory.
Hey,
this is all really.
There's one thing that I want to just mention while we're looking at this, because I've had a couple people ask me about this. There is another tag that you can put in after the archive tag. There's it's -- no - links. And what that will make rsync do is it will not follow a symlink. Because I had one guy who said, well, I set this up and it's now attempting to copy everything that is on my NAS over to my backup drive. And I was like, oh, put the no links in there, and then it won't do that. So what it does in that case, it takes a symbolic link and it copies it as a link. And so that's a kind of I just wanted to stick that in there.
No, that's important. That can be important depending on, what you're backing up.
Yeah, most people don't have a bunch of symlinks in their home directory, but if you do, and you're going to use rsync to do backups, it's on the second page of stuff in grsync that you can set. And for the command line version, you just put no links in there, and you can check that in the rsync man page if you have any questions.
Yeah, and that's definitely important. So again, this exec start's just going to start the shell and pass this command into. So this is how you could create your own commands and get, you can get creative, obviously. So once you have all this in, I'm going to go ahead and for simplicity's sake, like I said, you could actually, the only thing you really have to do is unit, description, and then service in this exec start. You could actually omit everything else if you really wanted to, but I'm just wanted to show you. So in VI, I'm going to hit escape to make sure I'm out of insert mode. I'm going to type in the colon, which you can see down here. It's VI is saying, okay. I'm going to type X, which means write it out and close all in one. You can use WQ, but I like X because it's only a single character. So now let me go to that directory here so that you may see that. So I'm going to CD to /systemd/system. And if I ls, well, I'll just ls it. I don't need all of it. You can see here we now have our backup.service. So this is how you create the command to run. Now, if you were just scheduling like something to run a daemon, like a web server, MySQL, something else, and you didn't need a timer, you just needed to have it just simply start when the system loads. That's all you have to do. You only have to create a service file, and then you could just do an enable on it, which I'll show you in a minute, and you could do a start and it would run. But for this recording, we're going to show you how you create a timed based one, so it runs every X moments. So now, in order to do that with systemd, we have to create a .timer file. So in the same directory, and again, use this etc directory instead of the user because a lot of the documentation is incorrect according to the engineers. So what we're going to do here is we're going to create our timer file. Now, unless you're specifying the name, the easiest way is simply just call it whatever you called the service file, take what's in front of that dot and add .timer. So in our case here, I'm going to do sudo space VI again to get our text editor. I'm technically in this directory, so I don't have to do the full path, but I'm going to issue it anyway. I'm going to do etc systemd system, as you can see, timer or backup.timer. So we have our backup.service file, our backup.timer. Because you see, when we go to enable this service, we're going to enable backup.timer. And if there's nothing in the backup.timer file, it's just going to look for the name.service to run. So I'm going to go ahead and open this file. So now I've opened the file, and I'm going to copy all this information from my notes real quick so I don't have to type all this in. Going to hit I for insert for VI. That's only for VI. I'm going to hit paste, and we have this now in here. So again, we have our unit section. We have our description, which is just run rsync backup every hour. Then we have our timer section, and this is where you actually set the time. And just like the other one, I'm going to show you how you change this because I want to give you what you're going to do. You're not going to run this every minute like we're going to run it for our demonstration, but more than likely. And then this is where you set how often you want this command to be executed by systemd. The on calendar equals, and then whatever you type in here. Now, typically for most home users and individuals, you use something like Allory will probably be the fastest you want to run something, but you may type in Allory, daily, monthly, weekly. You can even do annually, yearly. Those commands are available. You are able to look those up online. And that's the easiest way to do it. You may also do it like a cron cron. Well, if you ever use cron, I understand some of you might not, especially if you're a home user, but there is a way to schedule to run it every 15 minutes or every 10 minutes. And I'm going to show that in just a moment, because that's how we're going to, just for demonstrations again, show it, because we don't want to wait for the hour to change to execute this. Now, persistent equals true. I always recommend, because if you don't do that, well, okay, if you enable this, systemd will write out the last time it ran the command to the file, to the actual file system, instead of keep it in memory. That way, if the computer gets shut off, like let's say we want to run this every week and it runs on a Sunday, and we have our computer off, and we turn it on Monday because we went somewhere for the weekend that we're normally home, and we turn it on. Without this persistent equals true, systemd doesn't save the last time it ran to disk. This will flush it out to disk, and that way it will pick up systemd when you start your computer, say, oh, I missed something I should run, and it will go ahead and run that. Now, it doesn't always run it immediately. Sometimes it will wait a few moments to run it, but it will run that. It won't wait to the next week to run that. So I always recommend personally sticking in persistent equals true. And then this final section here, install between the brackets, wanted by, this is just the target it's going to use. Now, I suggest for scripts that you use multi-user.target. However, if you're using a timer function, I guess you could go ahead and use timer.target. This is, now I'm not going to get into explaining this, that was in the systemd, but this is similar to like a run 3 level. Basically, it's a multi-user environment without the GUI or UI. And we don't need the GUI for or UI user interface. If you're not familiar, or graphical user interface, if you're not familiar with those terms, we don't need that to execute this script. So once you have that information in, and this is really is about as small as you can get for a timer file, I'm going to go ahead for VI. I'm going to hit escape. So I make sure I'm not in insert mode. I'm going to type in colon, as you can see in the lower left-hand corner here, and I'm going to type in X again, which will save it and close it all in one. And if I go ahead and ls this again, I'm again, as you can see here from the prompt, I'm in etc systemd system. You can see now we have our service file and our timer files for backup. Backup.service, backup.timer. Now, I'm going to go ahead and do an all on these. So I'm going to do ls-al, and H is the human flag if you're not familiar with that, backup, and then the asterisk, because I just want to make sure that these are not set to be writable by everybody. They're not. They should be created as basically 644 permissions. So that's what you want to make sure you have. So we have created the 2 files we need. Now, some of you may be thinking, well, I know how to do cron. This is a lot more work than cron. Cron, I just simply enter one flag and I'm done. Well, not, it depends on what you're running. However, cron is not as intelligent. It can't determine, I missed something, I need to run it. So it's a give and take. It's up to you. But obviously, this is just showing you how to use systemd.
Well, it depends on the system too, because if you're using any Ubuntu system, then you have a choice. You can do what we're doing with systemd right now, or you can use Anacron. But the truth of the matter is, now that systemd is here, we don't know how long Anacron is being supported. Anacron is in Ubuntu 17.04. It is set up. It's ready to go. However, Anacron in Arch Linux and Manjaro, it is there, it is running, but it's not necessarily configured. So if I was using an Arch-based distribution, or if I was using CentOS or something like Fedora, systemd would definitely be the way to do this. If you're in Ubuntu, you have the choice. You can use Anacron if you want to. It's still there. It's still working just fine. I use it for certain tasks, but this is a choice. And Anacron, by the way, is way more finicky about the syntax and the scripts than systemd is. So in Anacron, you have to set just the right flags. You have to do just the right things to make that work. Whereas this is, what command do you want to run? Bam, done.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I mean, I think now that systemd is in place, you'd be better off learning at least how to do this, and forget Anacron myself. I mean, systemd is a lot more capable and knows a lot more of what's run, what hasn't run, and it's a lot more intelligent figuring things out. Okay, so I'm going to clear the screen here. And we've set everything up, so everything should be correct, but we haven't enabled it. We haven't started it. We haven't told systemd that we want to run this. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to copy a command. I'll explain it. Well, we don't really have to run sudo. Something I explained in the last video is I often personally use sudo, and I know that's you shouldn't really run things unless you need elevated permission, because a lot of things with the systemd command, which is system control, systemctl that you see here, doesn't need sudo access if you're just listing information, but some things do. So it's really up to you. You could technically just run this without sudo. Anyway, the command to check the timers is systemctl space list hyphen and then timers, as you are able to see on the screen. So I'm going to go ahead and hit enter. And as you can see here, we have 3 active timers. You can see here that the next time it's going to run, the time left till it runs, the last time it ran, when it passed, and then the unit and activities. You can see here we have a .service file and .timer files. And you can see here these names match. You can see, except for you see snapd.refresh.timer and snapd.refresh.service. And that's just generally how it's done. You are actually, as I mentioned, able to change that name, but you have to reference that correctly in the timer file. But if you're interested, you are able to do that. So we need to enable this. So the way that we are going to enable this is we're going to type in sudo, and you have to type in, as I just mentioned, sudo when you're going to bring a service up, bring a service down, change it from enabled to disabled or disabled to enabled. And the difference between the two, if you're not familiar, is enable and disable control if the service will load when you start the computer up, when you boot the operating system up. Then start and stop control whether the service is running or stopping while the computer is already on. So we need to enable this first because, for example, in our sake of this example, we want to, when the computer boots up, every time we turn the computer on, we want this command to, be loaded into memory, so systemd will do its thing. So you're going to type in sudo system control, and we're going to type in enable, and then we want to enable the timer. And a lot of times, if you don't have a timer function, you're going to enable the service file. But in this case, we want to enable the timer file, and then the timer file will call the service file. But again, if, for example, if you're working with a server, you're probably going to have, in most cases, like a web server or something like that, you're going to enable the service file, but not for us. So we're going to enable backup.timer. So again, that's sudo space systemctl for control space enable space backup.timer. Going to hit enter. And you'll see here it's going to create a symbolic link. And it's going to create the symbolic link to the multi.user.target.wants, because that's what we had specified if you go look at the file above. So now I'm going to run the system control. I'm just using the up arrow, system control or systemctl space list hyphen timers. And you'll see it's not there. And the reason is because we have not started it. We've told the system, look, when I restart the computer, enable this, but we want to start this now. So the way that is done, go ahead and clear the screen. So you have to use sudo for this. Whenever, again, you're bringing up a service or changing the running state of it, you have to use sudo. Then I'm going to do sudo space system control or systemctl. That's, again, CTL is short for control. Then I'm going to start, there's space start, and then I'm going to issue our command to call the backup.timer file, because again, we're calling the timer file, which is calling the service file. So I'm going to go ahead and hit enter. And then I'll just use the up arrow. We're going to do the systemctl space list hyphen timers. And you're able to see that here it is. So this is because if I scroll back up, you'll see there's 3. And now we have 4 with our backup.timer. So you can see here, the next time it's going to run is Saturday. And because it's remembering this 15th. That's why, because I was like, why is it saying Saturday? But the last time is Monday, past 6 seconds ago, and we have backup.timer. So if I go ahead and ls the backup directory, it's saying it ran, you can see we already have our files ran. Because, see, the reason it's doing this, the reason it's showing Saturday is because it remembered. I didn't actually tell it to clear the data out. On our class, if you haven't, again, watched that previous recording, it was recorded on Saturday, and systemd said, hey, I remember this command. So now you can see, though, our ls/backup actually ran. So we have, if I ls space /home, you can see here, in the first example, I have ls space /backup. Here are our files, and I did an ls space, or sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself, ls space /home, and you can see here we have a mirror copy. So systemd fired off and actually ran the command this time, again, because in that class I had something that worked under CentOS, but was not set up under this Ubuntu system. So
you had the wrong path to your shell.
Yes, I had the wrong, and that was the whole, Well, okay, so that's why we're doing this. Also doing this class because people will be wondering and searching this. So that's how easy you create that. So again, the next time it's going to run this is it says 1 day left, which it should correct itself. Let me see. Let me rerun, clear this. We are telling it to run an Allery, so I'm going to do system control space list hyphen or dash timers. And you can see here now it's corrected itself. Because see, the problem was I had to flush out old data. It has a database. I had to flush this out. So now you can see here, well, I'll scroll back up here. You can see we're saying 1 day left, and we were telling it to run every hour. That's not right. But you can see here now it has updated. Systemd said, oh, well, I had old data. I got to get stale data out of the system. So now it has updated correctly. And it's saying, look, Monday, instead of the next time being on Saturday, it is saying correctly now Monday. It is going to fire off in another 45 minutes left. And again, it passed in about 2 minutes. So it will literally just keep running. Now, I do want to show you how you change this because that's something that you might need to do. So let's say, I'd rather have this fire off every week because since it went ahead and fired off, I won't have to change it to be minutes. Like I was going to just put it for a minute. We don't need to do that. But let's say, I don't need to run every hour. Every week's good enough. So let's go ahead and do that. And then I think that will pretty much wrap this up this recording. So what we need to do, I'll go ahead and LS this just so you can see here. So again, I'm in the /systemd/system directory. And you can see here again, we have our backup.service and backup.timer. Well, if you think about it for just a moment, we want to affect the time. So we want to edit the backup.timer file. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to have to use sudo because we're going to edit a file that if I go ahead and I ls this, you can see here it's owned by root. I could have just ls just that file. But anyway, so what I'm going to do here is I'll go ahead and clear this. So I'm going to do sudo space vi, again, use Pico or Nano or whatever you want to use. And then we're going to edit the backup.timer file. So now that I'm in this file, we can change the on calendar. This is where we're telling it to run. Change the on calendar. I'm going to hit I for insert. I'm going to change this to weekly. And then I'm going to delete that. So now it will read on calendar equals weekly, which is really probably honestly more what you're going to do for a backup. You may have a daily backup, which I could just specify on calendar equals daily, but I doubt many of you are going to have use cases where you need to do it.
Weekly should be enough. Yeah.
Yeah. So now I'm going to hit the escape key to make sure this is for VI. I'm going to hit escape to make sure I'm out of insert mode. I'm going to hit colon again and hit X. So as I've explained many times now, that will write it out and close it. And if I go ahead and cat that file, which is cat space backup.timer, you can see here we have now changed it to weekly. Great. So now all I'll have to do is show you the list timers, right? Well, not so fast. You'll see. I did system control space list hyphen timers. Wait a minute here. This is saying it still has 42 minutes left and it's next going to run this Monday. Well, that is because we have not told systemd that we changed the file. So if I were to turn this computer off, then you wouldn't have to do anything else. If I were to just turn this off at night, turn it on in the morning, it would catch that.
When it rebooted, it would reload.
Yeah. Yeah. But what we need to do is we want it to reload the daemon. So what we need to do is we need to tell, hey, systemd, we have changed basically one of your unit files. We need you to pick up that change. So I'm going to issue sudo space. Well, I guess I'll clear this out to the very top. Sudo space. And then I'm going to issue the system control, so systemctl. And then we're going to do daemon reload. So that is, again, sudo space system control space daemon reload. Again, that's going to tell system control, rescan your unit files and basically pick up any changes. And you could issue this even if you haven't changed it, if you just want to reload it for some reason. It doesn't hurt anything. So I'm going to go ahead and hit enter. You can see there was a minor pause because it scanned everything. It scanned the unit files, timer file, service files, reloading any changes real quick. So now if I go ahead, I'm just going to use the up arrow, so I don't have to retype that in. And I'm going to issue system control space list hyphen timers. And if you recall, it was going to fire off in about 42 minutes. You can see now here that we have Monday, 10 hours are left. And it passed it. Oh, whoops, here it is. I'm sorry. I was on the wrong line. We have I was going to say that wasn't right. So we have 6 days left. It changed the order of this. We have 6 days left, which would be a week. And it passed 6 minutes ago. And you can see here now, it's the 17th. So you can see at the clock up here, the next run is going to be on the 24th. So it's really 6 days and some some hours to go, but that's how it's just showing it here. It's not showing the full time, obviously. So that's all you have to do to change it. So it's really simple to work with this. I guess the last thing, I won't actually load it, but just if you're kind of wondering for the sake of demonstration, let me edit this. Well, I need to sudo this, sudo vi backup.timer. I want to show you, just in case you're saying, well, what happens if I want to run this at a certain time? I don't want it weekly. I want to fire something off every 10 minutes or something like that. So the way that is done is you would do star colon, say 0/10. And what this will do is this will say, starting at the 0 mark, or when it's the hour has changed, fire off every 10 minutes. Or I could say, wait, whoops, I'm still in insert mode, so it did that. You say, no, I want it to start at, let's see, I guess I will, let's say I want it to start at every 4 minutes and then fire off every 10 minutes. So what this will do is at the top of the hour, it'll wait till it gets to, say, 12:04, and then it will fire off at 12:04, 12:14, 12:24, 12:34, etc. And then if it runs out of fours, it just waits to the top of the hour. Because, for example, on insert mode, that's why it keeps doing this. If I say I want this to start at 33 and I want this to fire off, say, every 15 minutes, well, it'll wait till it's 12:33, for example, fire off. It'll wait 15 more minutes, fire off. But then if it runs out of 15-minute increments, it's like I can't. It'll just wait till it gets to, say, 1:33 and fire off, and then it will, fire off 15 minutes from then it'll wait till it gets to 33. So that may be a little bit confusing for some home users. But if you're wondering, if you're someone in that situation where you wanted to set that to fire off, say, at a certain interval, I doubt you'll use that too often. Usually when you're in a situation like this,
that reminds me of when I used to program automation systems. We used to do things like this. Give me the heebie-jeebies. Hourly or weekly is good enough for me. That's all.
Yeah, I mean, for the average home user, don't worry if your eyes are glazing over. Just stick with daily, weekly, monthly, that kind of thing. You're perfectly fine. But if you are someone who's a little more advanced and maybe you're working with servers or you just want to play around, this is how you will specify it. So it's star colon, and again, the start time, say 0 would just be when it's 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, whatever. And then the slash will be your interval. /5 would be every 5 minutes, /15. You don't have to be this. You could do every /9, for example. If for some reason you're saying, look, I want to run this every 9 minutes, you could say. So again, anyway, that's pretty much it. That's all I really have. I mean, obviously with systemd, well, I should say you could. I alluded to this in this recording. You can go look at documentation. Well, I think the easiest thing, real quick, is just to show you. Let's see if there's a service file here that would be worth looking at. Well, let's look at dbus just for the sake of. No, that's going to be a directory. If I remember my color codes on this one, I don't use these colors usually. No, that's a symbolic link. Well, okay, whatever. Oh, I know. Let me do it this way. I just would like to show just briefly here, cat service. No, what am I doing? It's .service. So I'm just catting this. So system control. This is really less about me showing you. I really just want to show you. There's a few, as you can see here, there's additional options. So I'm not going to go over all these. Restart equals on failure. We'll just restart it. You can look up online, but here's this reload command to reload stuff. So if you're wondering, how do I set this? This is just what systemd is executing on. This is not all about systemd.
We're looking at SSHD, right? So yeah, this would be very important.
And it's really less about SSHD, but yeah, if you're wondering, I did systemctl space cat space SSHD.
Yeah, that's something that we're not talking about firing off a backup command. This is a very important service. So this is another example of how cool systemd is when it deals with things like this, because this has got to be rock solid. And
really
all of this is insurance.
The point of me talking about this is really less about the service. I just want to show you I just wanted to show you there's other variables or settings you can issue here. So, but if you issue reload, this is where you're putting that. You can see our exec start, and it's really less about SSH. I just wanted to show you that there are other variables you can enter in for, like, I was just showing you a very simplistic file, but you can get very advanced. As you see, there's no user here or group equals here because it's not, I mean, there are literally dozens of these. So I would just go online and look those up because you can put in aliases so you can call it multiple ways. You can, do you want it to restart or not? So you can see here, this is type notify instead of type simple or type, one shot or whatever. So I again, this is really not about the SSH daemon. This is or service files, really just that there's different, just wanted to illustrate again, there are different flags or variables, settings, whatever you'd like to call them, that you're able to set here. So you can go to online and research those because you can limit the CPU usage on a service. You can limit an IO, as I've said in the previous recording. You can limit the amount of RAM a system's service is using, excuse me. So maybe you say, my backup's big and I don't want it taking up all of the CPU because whenever I backs up, my computer slows to a crawl. So you can say, look. So I'm not going to show you how to do that because that's more advanced. I'm just letting you know
you can limit it. Yeah.
You can.
Awesome.
You can get really advanced with this and go really crazy. Just look at other service files and go look online. But again, keep in mind when you're looking at these environments, that was my error because again, I had done that in CentOS. I forgot that user USR space or / bin / sh was not set up in the Debian environment, at least in the Ubuntu environment. So you may occasionally run across that. So it's actually, in a way, a good idea to execute the command yourself to see if it works on your system. Because,
run the command first.
Run the command, because if I go ahead here and I just cat our backup.service file, you can see here that this is what systemd is running. So run this for yourself and make sure that works. Then put that in systemd.
Well, that's good for any script.
That's all I have, Joe.
Yeah, that's good for any script anyway. I mean, if that's a mistake, you can write something and you think, oh, I got this. I've done this 4,000 times. And then you get one thing wrong and you're sitting there going, why doesn't it work? I do this all the time myself. All right, Jeremy, thank you very much for taking the time out of your day to clarify this. I'm sure this is going to be really useful. Don't forget there is another video, so you can look at the last episode of Mr. Desktop and Mr. Server. You can get the whole skinny on this. So we've now done, what, like 2.5 hours on systemd. If you want Jeremy to help you set up servers, set up Linux for small businesses, if you need software, you need some what do you call that you do, that you specialize in? It's software that is between two other systems.
It's called middleware. It's just between
middleware. I'm thinking intermediate-ware in my head. I'm like, no, I know that's not right. This is the man to talk to. The link is going to be in the description for this video. And be sure and check out Easy Linux on Facebook. Check out Easy Linux on the web. And check out Freedom Penguin for lots of really cool stories about Linux. And just one quick note before we wrap this up for those of you who watch all of these videos. Yes, we realize that the last one we posted was 2 hours long. What we're going to do in the future, we've discussed this before we started recording this one, we're going to probably break these up into segments and release them over time, because people are saying, hey, I really love the content, but I can't sit down and watch it all at once. That's cool. We heard you. So what we're going to do is future versions of Mr. Server and Mr. Desktop are going to be a little bit shorter, so you guys can digest them in easy to chew bites. You know what I mean? So thank you for watching. Thank you very much, Jeremy. We're going to say bye-bye now, I think.
Bye, gang.